Hello everybody, my name is PentaHybrid and welcome to my Nuzlocke explanation video. This video is going to be a little bit more in detail onto what the Nuzlocke challenge of Pokemon is. As you may know, or may have recently found out, I have announced that I'm going to be doing a Nuzlocke, at least one Nuzlocke Pokemon challenge. My goal is to do one of each game, or each generation, I should say, that I enjoy playing, which would be 1 through 3, because I haven't played anything past that. And so, in my last PentaMIND video, which went up as of like a couple of hours ago before recording this, I talked briefly about the Nuzlocke challenge. In fact, I probably talked more than I should have. That was a greater portion of the PentaMIND. Which was not planned, but I talked to the camera for 72 minutes and had to edit it down to about a half hour. So it took quite a bit of time. It was not planned to be that long, but most of my PentaMinds end up being quite long. In fact, my first PentaMIND video was like an hour and 10 minutes, and I had to edit it down, and I could only get it to around like 39 minutes or whatever it was. But anyway, before I ramble on and make this another 40-minute video, this is going to be my Nuzlocke explanation for those of you who watch that do not know what this is. It is going to be a little bit more in detail than most people. Most people do not know what the Nuzlocke actually stands for, what it is. I'll be going into detail of a little bit of not exactly a background, because I kind of went into that with my Mind video. Obviously, there will be a link to that video in the description of this video, so you can go watch that and listen to me babble on for a half hour. But I'll be giving you the actual challenge, not the origins of it, because I already talked about that. I'll just go into what the actual challenge of the game is and what makes it so enticing, and why for 4 years I have not done it but have wanted to do it. The biggest reason is because I haven't been playing many. I haven't played a Pokemon game in many years. I shouldn't say many years. In fact, the last time I played a Pokemon game was only like a year and a half ago. I played Fire Red again, and played through that. What is the Nuzlocke challenge? Why would you want to do one? Why would I want to do one? Well, the Nuzlocke challenge is probably one of the most well-known and most difficult tasks in all of Pokemon culture. It is very hard. It's basically hard mode for Pokemon, because Pokemon is a relatively easy, simple, some would say childlike game. Now, where the Nuzlocke steps in it aims to spike the difficulty of all the games. And increases it to a maximum amount of difficulty. More so than your typical normal easy Pokemon adventures that you would go in by simply... It basically adds rules. They're self-imposed rules that you have to go in understanding and knowing, and you can actually... I'll get into this in a little bit with a flowchart I'm going to open up and read through with you guys. There's actually a way to set your own difficulty. It is very widely accepted that a person's first Nuzlocke should only use the first 2 or 3 rules. I mean, the third rule isn't really considered a rule. It's a bit of a... what's the word? It's part of the culture of the Nuzlocke, and I can't remember what the exact word is. Oh God, I can't... What's the word? There's one word in billions of words on the planet that I'm searching for, and I don't know what it is. It's frowned upon if you don't do it. Let me know in the comments below what the word is for that, and let my brain rest. But it's frowned upon if you don't do the third thing. It's not exactly a rule, you don't have to do it, but it is frowned upon if you don't do it. And I'll go into the rules, but basically, the first main rule of the Nuzlocke challenge, as I said before, and as I'll say again, is you can only catch the first Pokemon you find in an area. It's not the first species, it's not the first type, it is the first Pokemon. Think about the Ilex Forest in Gen 2. right after that one town that I cannot remember the name for some reason. It has the Slowpoke well. You enter the Ilex Forest, say you run into a Ladybug. You have to catch that Ladybug, or else you can't catch anything else for the rest of that area. Route 12, I think, is where you can catch Sandshrews in red and blue. Route 12. I think it's Route 12 where you can catch Sandshrews. Correct me if I'm wrong. But if you can't run, you can also run into Jigglypuffs and Clefairies there, if I remember correctly. But if you run into a Sandshrew in Route 12, that's the only Pokemon you have to catch or can catch in that area. You can kill it and find another Sandshrew, but you can't catch that Sandshrew, that second one. You have to kill it because the first one is the only one you can catch. An area would count as a route, a cave, a town. Anytime that little wonderful thing pops up in this one of these corners that says you entered in this area. Like, Diglett Cave is a separate area from Vermilion. Yes, they're right next to each other, but because you go into Diglett's Cave, you can still fish in Viridian and catch a water-type Pokemon from Viridian and go into Diglett's and catch a Diglett. Or if you're really, really, really lucky, run into that level 30 Dugtrio that everybody wants from Diglett's Cave. But like Mount Moon, the chances of you running into a Zubat as your first Pokemon are very high. In fact, Zubat in Mount Moon, correct me if I'm wrong on this too, I believe it's an 80% first encounter rate in Mount Moon in the game code. I think it's different for Fire Red. I think Onyx has a higher, is about up there with it. But I know in the original Gen 1 games, Zubat had like an 80% first encounter rate. But yeah, that's basically the first rule, is you can only catch the first Pokemon. So think about it like Mount Moon. If you run into a Zubat, you have to catch that Zubat. If you kill the Zubat, you can't catch anything else in Mount Moon. If you run out of Pokeballs in that encounter, say you only have 2 and he escapes both of them, that Pokemon escapes both of them, you can no longer catch that Pokemon. You have to kill it and accept the fate of not being able to catch something from that area. So it increases the difficulty as it limits you from catching numerous Pokemon. You can only catch one Pokemon per area, and depending on the game, some of them only have like 20 or so areas. And going into the second rule, you'll understand very quickly why it is incredibly important to catch every Pokemon you can. And rule 2, some people consider this to be the first rule, but I think that to catch the first Pokemon is got to be rule 1, because that is something that increases the difficulty exponentially compared to the second one, which is the second one, if a Pokemon faints during battle, it is dead. You release that Pokemon, you can no longer use it. There's no revives. Obviously, there's sub-challenges and sub-rules you can add to that, where you can't use healing items, or you can't use, you can only use one Pokemon Center per area, blah, 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 blah. But generally speaking, the first time you do a Nuzlocke, you just want to use these basic rules, and the basic rule is if a Pokemon dies, it faints. It's dead. No revives. You release it from your PC, or in your PC. I know plenty of people in the older games who dedicate a certain box in their PC, because there's like 14 boxes in the later games, but I know there's people that are in like 4 in the main one. I don't remember how many there are, but in the original ones, but you dedicate a box to your fallen Pokemon, and you don't release them, but you keep them there to just remember, this guy died, this guy died, this guy died. And then you can like show a post Nuzlocke roll of all the Pokemon that have passed away during the Nuzlocke. And rule 3, and this is technically not a rule to me, this is the one that is frowned upon if you don't do it, and that is you have to name all of your Pokemon. You have to nickname them, and it is intended as such. There's a gnat in front of me for some reason. It is intended for you to both bond with your Pokemon, so they're just not just something on a screen. They're your friends, they're your companions, they bring you through this journey, they are the only thing that keeps you moving in this Nuzlocke challenge. And if one passes away, it gets more emotional because you connect with them, and you can just catch a Charmander and name it Charmander, and it's just like, oh, Charmander died, okay. But if you catch a Charmander and name it Sally or Salamander or something like that, and it dies, you'd be like, oh my god, Sally died. Like my Geos. If I just named him Geodude, I wouldn't have that connection with Geo that I would with a regular Geodude, because he's Geo. He's my Geo. Those are the basic rules of the Nuzlocke. There are other rules to make it higher difficulty, as we'll get into in a little while with the flowchart, and I'm going to be opening it. Why would anybody want to do a Nuzlocke? Why would anybody want to put themselves through this thing? Because it's gonna feel awesome every inch of your journey that you succeed without doing something, without dying, without failing. Oh yeah, and a big thing I just completely forgotten. I always forget this part. It's not a rule. It's just it's because it's basically implied with two of the or at least one of the rules, and that's if you black out or white out, depending on the game you play. They're worded differently, which means you lose all your Pokemon in one battle. Say you wipe out your party of 6 and they die in a whole battle. It's game over. There's no reloading. It's game over. You start the whole Nuzlocke over. You can't reload your game. You can't reload the save. You can't, you're dead. You're done. It's essentially your game is over. The Nuzlocke has ended at that point. But yeah, why would somebody want to play it? It forces you. It forces you to try new things because there's no guarantee you're going to run into your favorite Pokemon in a new area. And that's probably the biggest intrigue that I have with it and have had with it for years now. And it's the trivial aspect of it where it's like, but I don't like this Pokemon. But Nuzlocke makes you use it because it's like, well, it's the first guy you ran into. Either you go through the game with one Pokemon, which is actually one of the sub-rules you can choose to make it higher difficulty, is using just your starter to beat the game. I know, but, what was I talking about? Oh, brain fart. Oh, yeah, you have to use Pokemon you never thought you would have used. Like, for instance, if I'm going to do Gen 3, I'm going to do Sapphire. I can name several Pokemon from Sapphire and Ruby from Gen 3 that I just never really cared for. In fact, I can name some from Gen 1 and Gen 2 that that actually appear in Sapphire that I just don't care for. I never thought of using. I never have used. They've never even once been caught by me. And if I run into them in a new area and I have to catch them, it forces you to use them. Because that's just another person on your team that helps you succeed in this Nuzlocke challenge. And it's so intriguing to me, and that's basically just the explanation, the first upfront explanation of it. The flow chart and the different tiers of difficulty we'll be going into in a second. Alright, here. Excuse me, I'm going to open this up real quick. Because I have... There it is. I have in my... God, this is so weird, opening this thing back up. I have the Nuzlocke rules flowchart, and this thing is brilliantly made. I'm gonna minimize this so I can actually read it. Excuse me 1 second. This is so tedious. Here we go. Minimized. Alright. Basically, the Nuzlocke run flowchart. Alright. Let's see as it starts out. You could probably find this in a quick Google Images search, but I'm just going to read off some of the stuff for you here, so it's just easier to see in video form. And you're here listening about Nuzlocke rules anyway, so why not just listen to me talk about it for stupid. Basically, in the Nuzlocke flowchart, it talks about the first rule being, let's see. If a Pokemon faints, you have to release it. It is essentially dead. And then it branches off into 2 different areas, and one says you have to catch the first Pokemon in an area that isn't a duplicate, which is the dupe clause, as they call it in Nuzlocke terms, which I'll talk about after I go to the next one, which is called you have to catch the first Pokemon you see in an area, which is the rule we talked about first, rule 1 in the basic rules, which is the basic rule where you have to catch the first in an area. And then there's a next to it, obviously in flowchart way, it points to a thing that says start. And that's the basics of a Nuzlocke. That's what you are recommended to do your first Nuzlocke, is those 2 major rules. Obviously, name your Pokemon, which even without Nuzlocke, I've always named my Pokemon. Even guys I didn't use in my party, I'd still name them and send them to the PC. But, the dupe clause. The dupe clause is a fun thing because... and it's probably something I'm going to do for my first Nuzlocke, for the Sapphire Nuzlocke I'm going to be doing. And that's mostly it's not technically taking away from the difficulty of the game, because it actually adds a bit more intrigue into that whole appreciating Pokemon you never thought you would use, because there are plenty of areas in each Pokemon game that hold and, house and that are inhabited by the same types of Pokemon. Like, I can imagine there are probably at least 4 areas in each game that have the rodent Pokemon, which is like Gen 1 is the Rattata, Gen 2 is the Ferret, or Sentret, evolves into a Ferret, Sentret, Gen 3 Zigzagoon, and on and on and on, like Bidoof and whatever. And there's always that rodent guy, and he's everywhere. So like Rattatas appear everywhere. And like Zubats is a perfect example. Anytime you're in a cave, there's a Zubat. So the Dupe Claws is pretty much taking away an annoyance of having a full party of Zubats or Rattatas and giving you that appreciation for Pokemon you never used. Whereas you run into... Here's a breakdown of the Dupe Claws for those of you that are curious. You have a Rattata in your party, you caught him in the first area because you ran into him at first, which is generally what happens with Rattatas. You run into him at the first battle. So generally you're going to have a Nuzlocke, you're in a Nuzlocke, you're probably going to have a Rattata. It's pretty much guaranteed. And then the second area, you run into another Rattata. The Dupe Claws cancels out that battle. That battle is officially just like a wild battle in the first area that you caught the first Rattata. It becomes just about farming for experience. The first non-duplicate Pokemon you run into in an area now is the first one you have to catch. So say you run into a Rattata in the second area and you've already caught a Rattata. The Dupe Claws erases the Rattata from that being the first one. And then you run into a Nidoran female in the second battle and you don't have one. That becomes the Pokemon you have to catch for that area. That's where the Dupe Claws actually becomes essentially one of the more important things that are for Nuzlocke people, because I probably will always use the Dupe Claws because I don't want to beat a game with 6 Rattatas. In fact, I don't even like Rattata. I mean, I like Rattata. I don't like Raticate. Raticate is stupid. He's ugly and gross, and I don't want him anywhere near me. And then it goes down, after the basic 3 rules that we've already talked about, it goes down into a couple more new things, which is nickname all your Pokemon. It's important to bond with them, which is the frowned upon thing that if you don't do it, people are going to be like, oh, you didn't name your Pokemon? It's totally un-Nuzlocke. That goes into, what does it say? Don't trade from another game, either from yourself or via Wi-Fi, no eggs and no Pokewalker. So that's pretty much a giant handicap on the Gold and Silver, the Gen 2 games, because a lot of Pokemon in that Gen 2 you can breed and get unique movesets and stuff like that, and so it takes away that ability to difficulty, because there's no time limit on a Nuzlocke. You can essentially, without that rule, farm and breed until you get a perfect moveset and a perfect combination of a guy, and then use him in your party and continue your Nuzlocke. So you can't trade from yourself. So basically, you can't have Ruby and Sapphire. Like say I'm doing Sapphire for my Nuzlocke, and I have a copy of Ruby. I can't trade a super powerful Pokemon from my Ruby game over there. Which that rule I'm automatically going to include into all of my Nuzlocke challenges, because that rule is perfect for me. The no trading, no eggs. I'm not sure, because I'm not a big fan of eggs. And the Pokewalker, I mean, I really don't utilize them as much as most Pokemon people do. Like, eggs are cool and all, the ones that you get gifted to you, like in Gen 2 you get a Togepi. But I've never used a Togepi. He was level 5 for the entire game, all the campaigns I did. And the next one is probably going to be another one that I'm going to do. So basically, I'm already not counting the no eggs, because I don't exactly know if I'm going to do that one or not. But already I can tell just from my flowchart that I'm on level 2 of Nuzlocke, because this next one is automatically going to be it. I'm automatically going to do it, and that's turn your battle style to set. And what set does is it restricts you from switching out your Pokemon when you faint one of the opponent's Pokemon. So you're in a battle with a gym leader, you're in a battle with freaking Misty, and she sends out her Starmie. And you have a guy who's going to be weak to Starmie's, ice attacks. I think he has ice attacks. I don't know much about Starmie. I never see another thing, as I've never had a Staryu in my party either. Who knows, I might get one. I don't know. I've never had a Tentacool either, but they seem to be pretty common in the water. But basically, yeah, there's, you can't switch out your Pokemon. You can't be like, oh, well, I fainted this guy. She's about to send out this thing. Well, I'll switch to something that usually don't. No, you have to. Essentially, you're sharing experience the entire game, because you can't switch out after a Pokemon faints. So you kill their guy, you can't, be like, hey, would you like to switch out your Pokemon? And then you switch out a guy to get full experience of the next battle. You have to wait until they send out their Pokemon, and then hit that switch button in the Pokemon and send out a different guy So they automatically get an attack on you. I just totally hit my camera. And they get an attack on you. So if you want to switch Pokemon, you have to sacrifice time and an attack phase. So that's what set does. Which pretty much I think I've almost always used set, even in just my basic runs. And that goes down to one of those things in a flowchart where it says, how much harder do you want this run to be? So there's next to it, it says a little. Down below it says, actually this is fine, and it says start. You can start with those rules. And over to the right, it says no mercy, and it goes into a no mercy run. So left of it, in the a little phase, it goes into saying no items except HMs, no healing. Any healing must be done via a Pokemon Center. That goes for status conditions too. So no antidotes, no awakenings, no potions, no super potions, none of that. A secondary addition to that where it says no hold items as well. So you can't use hold items, not even berries, which ruins Gen 3. And then it goes down even further and it says you can use TMs. So it's like no items except HMs. So basically if you use all three of those a little clauses, you can use only HMs and TMs, no hold items and no usable items, no potions, no antidotes, no awakenings, none of that stuff, no paralyze heals. And then that goes down to the next thing. And then you go to the no mercy side where it says no healing via Pokemon Centers, all items are allowed. So basically you can only use heal via items. There's no Pokemon Centers. You can't heal your Pokemon at a Pokemon Center. You have to use your money, your Pokemoney, and buy like potions and super potions to heal your Pokemon, which is really brutal. And that goes down to one Pokemon Center heal per town, which is the one I mentioned earlier. And then there's one Pokemon heal after a gym battle. So if you use both of those, they kind of stack to each other, like where you can use a Pokemon Center per town, but you can also use one if that town has a gym. You can use a Pokemon Center twice, I think. I don't know. And then it goes down to the level 4 Nuzlocke, which is what you want it to be even tougher, and it goes to oh god no, and obviously you can start at level 3, but level 4 is insanity. Just bear with me here, listen to this stuff. Okay, of course I want it to be even tougher. You can buy one Pokeball per Pokemart, preferably the lowest level possible. So you're in a store in a new town. You can only buy one Pokeball at that store permanently the entire game. And you have to preferably buy the lowest level. So they sell Great Balls and Ultra Balls and Pokeballs. You preferably have to buy, if you choose that rule, you have to buy the Pokeball. You can't buy a Great Ball or an Ultra Ball. And that goes into an even tougher 2 rules, which is no legendaries and or no more than 6 Pokemon. So you can only catch 6 Pokemon, including no legendaries during the entire Nuzlocke. And then it says don't use the daycare center, which is by far one of the most traumatizing rules. Because you don't have a guy in your party, you have to release a Pokemon if it dies. So you want to have guys backed up to fill your party up, because you don't want to run around with 3 Pokemon and a bunch of level 2s. So you want to use the daycare center in each game. But with this rule, you can't use it, and that's why it's like the final rule of the Nuzlocke flowchart. And obviously it details on the bottom of the Nuzlocke flowchart. It says, the flowchart is nothing more than a guideline. Feel free to add, remove anything. You obviously are expected after you do your first Nuzlocke using kind of the guideline rules to branch out on your own and create your own rules. Everybody has their own personal rule. There's personal rules I've seen of friends of mine that have done it before that say, okay, well, I can use potions during battle, but I can only use one potion in an entire battle. I know people that say they can't use potions in battle, but they can use them outside of battle, which is probably what I'm going to end up doing, because I don't like ever using healing potions and stuff in battles. Not in Pokemon. Pokemon, it feels cheap because nobody likes it when a gym leader does it to them, so I don't like doing it when I'm in the middle of a battle. So that's probably going to be something I'll do, where I won't use healing items during a fight, or potions during a fight. I'll use antidotes and stuff, but I won't use potions during a fight, but I will use them outside of a battle. Yeah, here it says if all of your party Pokemon faint, you will have to start over unless you have backup Pokemon stored in your PC box. I thought if you blacked out or white out, you were done. Well, that's probably a rule that a lot of people do, is if you black out or white out, you're done. But if you have Pokemon in your PC, you can swap them out. So that's nice to know. Okay, I'll definitely do that. Cause that's a nice way to lengthen it, just in case you like sabotage yourself. This has just been like me trying to explain to you what Nuzlocke is, kind of get you into the mindset of what a Nuzlocke can be, potentially can be, and will be. Um, Granted, this is going to be my first Nuzlocke coming up, and so I won't be doing all of the fancy rules. I won't be doing all the difficulty level. I won't be doing level 5 for damn sure, because for one, I love the daycare center, and I like to buy as many Pokeballs as possible. But I will be doing probably starting at level 2. I mean, it seems like level 2 is right where I usually play anyway without the Nuzlocke challenge. So I've been basically doing Nuzlockes my whole life except for releasing a Pokemon if it faints and catching only one Pokemon per area. I mean, I've always nicknamed my Pokemon. I really never traded. I don't use eggs too much. My battle style has always really been set because it makes it feel more vibrant. I was in the Nuzlocke mindset before and I knew what a Nuzlocke was, and I think that's pretty cool. I think that's just a fantastic idea. It's a way to increase the difficulty, and that's pretty much what I've always wanted out of a Pokemon was a difficulty setting, because it's so random. Like, even without Nuzlocke, you can be fighting a battle and have a complete type advantage, and all of a sudden they get a crit on you and you're dead, and it's like, damn it. But this has been me explaining what the Nuzlocke is. This is a very long video. I've been recording for a half hour. Jesus Christ, this was not what's supposed to happen. God, I ramble on for so long sometimes, and I apologize for that. I'm gonna have to edit this down to quite a bit, because this is supposed to be a really quick video. But basically, I'm actually kind of glad it got this long, because I went into detail. I cited examples. You know, you guys who are watching this, who are interested in watching my Nuzlocke challenge, that's gonna be coming up, watch this video. I'm glad you did, and now you kind of probably hopefully have an idea of what it is if you didn't, and if you did know what it was but you weren't sure exactly how far it went, now you probably have a decent idea. Let me know down below what you really think of this, what you think of the idea, if you're interested in doing one yourself, if you have done one yourself. Obviously tips and tricks and stuff for me, that'd be fine. I might not listen to them, as I said in my PentaMInd, but that's because I kind of want to go in completely blind on this. Obviously, I've played the game before, but I have a feeling I'm going to be stuck with Pokemon I've never thought about using before, and I think it's going to make me appreciate them. And I've heard of things. I mean, some of them are going to be completely unappreciated, because there's some Pokemon that I just even Nuzlocke I probably won't like. But I have a feeling that I'm going to end up getting pretty mentally sucked into this challenge. I'm really excited, but I'm also really nervous. So thank you very much for watching, and until the next video, my name is PentaHybrid. You can like the video, subscribe, and do it all your things. Let me know in the comments below all your thoughts and feelings, but I mean, until the next video, I'm going to be stressing out over this Nuzlocke challenge. Thank you for watching. Catch you later.